Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the Weekdays at Bernie segment tonight. It was fascinating to see the reaction to my interview with President Obama on Super Bowl Sunday, but I must say I never expected the interview to be branded racist. But on HBO, it was.
Worse than that, it was actually bigoted. When he asked him if he knows football. I mean,
right.
If I was the president, I'd say, get the out of my house.
Right.
I know football.
Well, he said, you're a basketball guy.
Yeah,
wink,
inner city basketball guy.
Yeah, we know
really
what that
American.
means.
Yeah. Muslims don't play football.
Right. And you also throw dice behind the Rose Garden, don't you?
Now, I believe what you just saw is the lowest point in the history of far-left discourse. That's how insane what you just heard really is. With us now, the purveyor of BernardGoldberg.com, Mr. Goldberg, who also works for HBO, but on a very fine sports program. That's just embarrassing, right?
It's embarrassing, but it's worse than that. It's irrational. It's almost clinical insanity. Look, people could watch the interview and say, I liked it, I thought he asked good questions, or they could say, I didn't like it, I didn't think he asked good questions. But you have to be out of your mind to find racism in that interview, which they clearly did. Then they also, which is not in that clip, also said you were unpatriotic. I can't comment on that because that's too crazy even for me. The third thing he said, which I found very interesting, is that you were disrespectful to the president. Now, if you're going to accuse somebody of being disrespectful, you better come to the table with clean hands. Bill Maher has said, and I jotted down three things. Bill Maher has said of President Bush that he's a retarded child emperor. He has said, I'm a comedian, Bush is a retard, his words. And he said, Bush is a crazy evangelical Christian. Now, it takes a certain kind of person to see what you did as disrespectful after he does all that. So yes, it's embarrassing, it's irrational, it's hypocritical, right. And it's not, for a guy who fancies himself smart, it's not too smart on his part.
But here's the key question, and this is almost like I was at Juana Mary and Catherine discussion. When you jump the shark, all right, as they say in showbiz, and you get to a point where what you say is just flat out, as you said, clinically insane. All right. What happens then?
Nothing.
But it used not to be that way.
Right.
It used to be when a commentator, remember Jackie Mason on the Ed Sullivan Show when he was doing the finger business?
Yes.
He didn't work for 5 years after that.
Right.
Okay, it used to be you were held accountable.
Yeah, couple of things. One, we live in a different America today. Jackie Mason, interestingly, offended one person.
Ed Sullivan.
Unfortunately, it was Ed Sullivan. You know, Bill Maher actually should offend anyone with a shred of decency. You don't smear somebody as a racist when there's obviously nothing there. But because we live in a different America where you can say just about anything, get away with it, nothing will happen to him. And let me say this, HBO lets people say things, including letting me say things. HBO is a very liberal institution, but they have never once, they know what I say about not all liberals, but a lot of liberals in the media, and they have never once tried to censor anything that I've said, to their credit, and they certainly are not going to, try to censor Bill Maher.
No, I don't expect them to. But the American public, though, you believe the public has changed and now won't hold anybody accountable for what they say?
I think that's a big part of it, but in the specific case of Bill Maher, and believe me, this is not a shot at Bill Maher, I don't think he's important enough to matter. If Barack Obama had said those words, that he thinks you're a bigot because you asked him about football, knowing I can't even explain this, because he's a basketball guy, and everybody knows black people play basketball. You, Bill O'Reilly, are a racist.
Don't black people play football?
But that's the crazy logic, whatever. So if Barack Obama said it,
then it would be elevated.
Bill Maher
but I'm more interested in the audience. See, I'm more interested in the audience's reaction.
There are two audiences. The American audience, and to the extent that the people watching us tonight are a part of the American audience, they find it reprehensible. There's no question about that. But he speaks to a subculture. He speaks to people who believe what he says. Bill Maher fancies himself the reincarnation Lenny Bruce, the comedian of the 50s who said controversial things and got in trouble for them. That takes a certain amount of courage. Bill Maher doesn't have an ounce of courage. He could say anything he wants and he's not going to get in any trouble.
Well, I don't know. I just think, to me, there has to be a tipping point, but apparently there isn't anymore. Now, you were watching the discussion about NBC News and Boehner and why they're harping on the birth certificate and the religion. You have a theory on it?
Well, just let me say that first, I think it's okay to ask a leader, do you think that these people who think Obama was born on Neptune, do you want to denounce these people? I don't think that's a crazy, unfair question in and of itself, although I think you made a good point earlier. But if liberal reporters, if liberal journalists can get Boehner to say, these people are nuts, then these people who, many of them who are nuts, and I'm going to hear from them for saying that, they also vote Republican. We have to admit that.
So he just want to create a fissure there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's probably what it was. All right, Bernie, thanks very much. We appreciate it. Coming right back with